All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle a question that seems so simple on the surface, but it's actually key to understanding how our whole economy works. And that question is, if a lack of money causes so many problems, why don't we just, print more of it?
I mean, it's a question you've probably asked yourself, right? It feels like such an obvious fix. If everyone had more money, problems like poverty and debt would just go away. But as we're about to find out, this simple solution has a really complicated and often disastrous answer.
Okay, so let's get into it. The reason this easy answer is a terrible idea boils down to one single, incredibly powerful economic concept that affects pretty much everything you buy. It's called inflation. So what even is inflation? Well, at its very core, it's what happens when you have more money chasing the exact same amount of stuff. Think about it like basic supply and demand. If demand for something shoots up but the supply stays the same, what happens? The price has to go up. Your money just starts to buy less than it used to.
To really make this click, let's use a super simple analogy. We're going to create our own little tiny economy, and it's all going to be centered around one very important product: bread.
So check this out. We've got a perfectly balanced system. There are 5 people, and each one has $5. And on the other side, there are exactly 5 loaves of bread for sale, each priced at $5. Everyone can afford one loaf. The system is totally stable. Simple, right?
But now the government decides it wants to help out. So it prints more money and gives an extra $5 to everybody. All of a sudden, each person has $10. The total amount of money in our little economy just doubled from $25 to $50. But, and this is the important part, notice what hasn't changed. There are still only 5 loaves of bread. So, what happens to the price?
This really gets us to the heart of the matter. Everyone literally has twice as much cash in their pocket as they did before. Does that actually make them any richer? Does it improve their life in any way?
And here it is, the core of the problem. The amount of actual, physical stuff to buy hasn't increased one bit. The bakery can't just magically make more bread appear. So now you've got all these extra dollars from every person, all competing for those same 5 loaves. Well, the baker isn't dumb. They see that everyone has more money to spend, so what do? They simply raise the price to $10. And just like that, at the end of the day, each person still only gets one loaf of bread. The only difference is it now costs them $10 instead of 5. Their actual purchasing power hasn't changed at all. They're no richer than they were before.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's a cute analogy, but that's not the real world. Oh, but it is. This exact scenario has played out time and time again in real life. It's a tempting shortcut for governments that are desperate to pay for things like wars or cover huge debts. But when this theory becomes reality, the results are, well, they're catastrophic.
We're going to look at 3 absolutely devastating real-world examples of what's called hyperinflation. That's when inflation just goes completely off the rails. We'll start in Germany after World War I, then jump to modern-day Zimbabwe, and we'll finish up with a look at Venezuela.
Okay, so first up, Germany. After losing World War I, its economy was an absolute wreck. And on top of that, they were on the hook for massive payments, war reparations to other countries. In a desperate move to pay these debts, the government just started printing money like there was no tomorrow.
The result was a complete economic nightmare. And I want to be clear, this isn't an exaggeration. It's a literal description of what life was like. Money lost its value so fast that people literally had to haul it around in wheelbarrows just to go shopping.
Just to give you an idea of how insane it got, a loaf of bread that cost around 250 German marks in January of 1923 cost 200 billion marks by November of that same year. People's life savings were wiped out in an instant. The entire economy just collapsed.
All right, let's fast forward to a much more recent example, Zimbabwe in the 2000s. After a period of really bad economic mismanagement, the country's ability to produce things, especially food, just fell off a cliff. So, facing a massive crisis, what did the government do? The exact same thing Germany did. They started printing money to pay their bills.
The inflation that followed is almost impossible to wrap your head around. At its absolute peak, the annual inflation rate hit 89.7 sextillion%. Yeah, that number on your screen has 21 zeros after it. The money became so worthless that the government actually issued a $100 trillion bill, and even that wasn't enough to buy a week's worth of groceries.
And our last case proves that even having incredibly valuable natural resources can't save you from this trap. Venezuela has the largest known oil reserves in the entire world.
But the country's economy was completely dependent on oil, and when the price of oil crashed, the government's income just vanished. To keep paying for huge social programs, they turned to the printing press.
And the result? Well, it was tragically familiar. The currency, the bolivar, became almost completely useless. It was literally worth less than the paper it was printed on. It led to these surreal scenes of people just sweeping up piles of worthless cash in the streets.
Okay, so if we've established that printing money is a one-way ticket to economic disaster, what's the real solution? How does a country actually create wealth and make life better for its citizens?
The whole thing comes down to this. Real wealth isn't about little pieces of paper with numbers on them. It's about production. The real goal is to increase the amount of actual goods and services an economy can create. When businesses are making more stuff, they have to hire more people. And with more products on the market, competition helps keep prices from going crazy.
And this is basically the playbook for how it's done. Instead of just printing money, successful economies focus on these things. They invest in their people with education. They build roads, bridges, and power grids. They support new technology, create an environment where businesses can grow, and manage the resources wisely. This is exactly how countries like Japan and South Korea went from devastation to being global economic powerhouses.
Which, in the end, brings us back to one final fundamental question that sums this all up. What good is $1 billion if there's nothing to buy with it? Money is just a tool we use to get the things we need and want. If those things, the food, the houses, the technology, don't exist, then the money itself is meaningless. You can't eat cash. The real value is and always will be in what a society can actually produce.